Well, good morning to everyone and those that are tuning in online. This first reading is from Whispers from Eternity entitled, Make Me See That I Am an Actor in Thy Cosmic Motion Picture. Beholding the ever-changing sound and motion pictures of life, I am aware that this turbulent dancing show is only a vast illusion. The tragedies, comedies, and paradoxes of life, the dreams of birth and death, the changing scenes and places that surge around us. All these are nothing but movies designed to engage us in the cosmic illusion. O divine operator, with thy cosmic vibratory light, thou dost show us ever new thrills. A motion picture true to all our five senses, keeping us amused and entertained through sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. O magic operator, thy true seeming spectacle beams daily onto the screens of our consciousness. I take it as thy grace that I have been chosen to play both tragic and comic parts in thy drama. I'm happy to have acted all of those parts, both of sorrow and of joy. Still, Father, give me now and then a few days of respite from my task. Let me retire to my closet of introspection and stand before my own thought audiences and behold with laughing heart all the tragedies and comedies I have enacted. Teach me to look upon all that happens in my life with a pleased, interested attitude, that at the end of each episode, no matter how sad or difficult, I may exclaim, "Ah, that was a good show, full of thrills, suspense, and excitement. I'm happy to have seen it, and I have learned much from it for my own benefit." And from the path, to set the stage for this reading, Swami has just recently discovered the autobiography of a yogi in New York and has been completely transformed. And now, after taking discipleship from Master, explained it to my knowledge, but then he stood up and everyone smiled their greeting. And so that's an introduction to this reading now from the path. From the chapter, Work versus Meditation. Boone told me in February of an experience he too had had after keeping his mind steadfastly on Master for 2 days. He was given a kind of ecstasy in which he was quite unable to feel his body, even while he moved about, performing his daily duties in the print shop. I had to pray finally that I'd be able to feel my body again, he said. I was afraid I might harm it in the machinery. Well, I thought, that was for me. More eager for the experience itself, I'm afraid, than for the humble attunement with my guru, I kept my mind on Master one-pointedly. He was in Encinitas at the time. 2 or 3 days later, he returned to Mount Washington. I met him by the front porch as he arrived. "What sort of mischief are you up to, Walter?" He smiled significantly. "None, sir. Mischief? It didn't seem like mischief to me." "Are you sure you're not up to some kind of mischief?" I began to understand what he meant, but was reluctant to accept his definition of what I was doing. As he was going indoors, he smiled lovingly, saying, "Goodbye, Walter." Thinking the matter over, I had to admit to myself that while my practice had been right, one day, missing him intensely, I went down to see him in Encinitas, where he was staying at the time. Shortly after my arrival, he passed a group of us on his way back from a drive. Seeing me, he invited me to ride up with him to the Hermitage. "I have missed you," he told me lovingly. How rare it is, I thought, for one's unexpressed feelings to be intuited so sensitively. Master's help was with us not only in our inner spiritual struggles, but in our work as well. One day, Norman and I were replastering the wall of a garage. Halfway through the job, Master, on his way out for a drive, saw us and stopped the car. Calling us over to him, he chatted with us for about a half an hour. We were delighted, of course. Yet at the back of our minds, there lurked a slight apprehension. What about that plaster? I had just mixed a fresh batch and poured it onto the board, and there it was, getting harder by the second. By the time Master left us, both Norman and I were certain it would take a sledgehammer to break up the plaster. To our amazement, however, we found it as soft and pliable as it had been when I poured it. For the rest of the day, the plaster gave us no trouble at all. Hard work was as important to our way of life as regular meditation. You must be intensely active for God, Master said, before you can attain the actionless state of union with Him. More than will that day come to me when saying, "Mother, Mother," my eyes will flow with tears. Gradually, I found myself becoming transformed inwardly. I began to feel I had some cause for self-congratulation when one day word came to me that Master had been talking with a group of the monks in Encinitas. During the course of the conversation, he had remarked lovingly, "Look how I have changed Walter." And so there it is, the Maya always lurking. Here was Swami doing what was for him so prized. He was with his guru, he was in the ashram, he was doing his sadhana, his seva, everything. And then he began to congratulate himself on how well he was doing. What a wake-up call for him when he heard, he wasn't there in person, but because the ego has no scruples, it's doing anything and everything it can to divide us. Yoga means union, and it cares not for that. It's doing its job, has to be employed too. So it's always finding ways. So here was Swami. Truly, at that time, he said that if I had not experienced any more joy, this is when he first came onto the grounds of Mount Washington, I would be totally satisfied. And then he said, dangerous words. Because after that, then the testing came. As we know, the road back into the light is an exciting journey. As we go up and down at the same time, we're taught, thankfully, as yogis, Kriya yogis, to just keep that steady perseverance, to keep even-minded and cheerful, not to get involved in all of the craziness that is there constantly pulling us inwardly and outwardly. Look how I have changed Walter. This is what God and Guru are doing all the time. Even while we're sleeping, Yogananda would go through, because then there wasn't the resistance. Even the disciples, have some form of resistance from time to time, obviously. So Master had a technique while the devotees were sleeping. He would go through their hearts and minds and pluck out those things that, again, were beginning to impede their spiritual progress. And it's good to keep in mind the formula, as Master shared, of the work that we have to do, and sometimes it appears to be overwhelming. 50% of our karma is taken by God, knowing that we never get out of this mess that God has put together for us for our entertainment and instruction. If half wasn't just taken away, because we've had so many incarnations and there's been such an accumulation of karma. And then the guru comes along and says, well, that's very good. And no doubt having tea with God saying, really it's not enough. Why don't I help out too? God is very happy for that, God working through all instruments. So then 25% more is taken from the guru. Well, our remainder is 25%, but is it? Really? Self-effort draws grace, we know that. But really, when we awaken from the stream, we'll find that God was doing absolutely everything. And so for us, as often as God knocks at our door, and really it's every moment, but we're not always awakened to that. When it's a pure thought, maybe a withdrawal, we can feel that actual withdrawal. Even though we're at work and trying to push through the day with so many tasks before us, God is calling at that time. He's very mischievous. You never know when he's going to knock on the door and say, do you have a moment? The minutes are more important than the years, as Yogananda said.